So you alluded to the fact that nobody else is really picking up on this, and do you think that's it? Is it just a mass formation psychosis, or is there something else going on? There's very few faculty members at any university that are really speaking up. Very few at Ryerson, at least.
Hmm. Okay, so I've thought a lot about that too, because I'm going back to be amongst them all.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering whether I should just say, please, let's not talk about vaccines. Um, but why are so many of them uh, seemingly willing to be compliant? And I gather my department's not unusual, but I think there's only me out of 30 who basically didn't comply, and I know that there were a few others um, who had problems who talked to me privately, but they complied anyway. And what it boils down to me is that, and this is sad. This has brought me to tears many times. They had no choice, and once you make the choice, then you have to justify it in your own mind. And so what you do is you get the talking points well mastered, so that when you say them to other people, they'll agree. Oh, good, he's on the same side as me, and they share those talking points. Like it was pretty horrible just to hear what was like in before the meeting would start. Like, what are they talking about? Oh, when they're going to get their kids vaccinated? It's like that. It's not about the weather anymore. It's about like your status and your degree of compliance. So I think there's a little bit of sort of cognitive dissonance going on here
Oh
because
yeah.
they've made a choice that's clearly against them. Now they have to actively convince themselves that that was the right decision, and then that's reinforced by the agreement they get in the sense of community, and which is very powerful for all of us.
Hmm.
Uh, in fact, it's probably in a time of stress and lack of meaning in life and adversity, we get a big positive reward out of social social rewards, basically agreements. It's even worse on the internet. The dopamine rush from the clicks that we get, and when I'm trying to figure out why are they complying so readily, um, it, part of it is that they cannot afford to go against it because they have a mortgage and children. And to me, that's criminal. That is called coercion. Like there is no free will involved here. So then, once they've made the decision, now I guess many of them are really uh, true believers in the vaccines. Like many of them say, of course, this is going to rescue us. Come on, everybody, just get in line, get the jab, and we'll be good. And have had serious conversations with a subset of them. My closest colleagues have agreed to talk to me, and they're fairly articulate with the data. And I have a hard time. Uh, it's complicated, okay, and it takes time to go through data sets, and it takes time to identify what are the appropriate comparisons and what's the numerator, what's the denominator. Um, and so I found it was exhausting, even for an hour, to try and talk. Like even when they gave me the opportunity. Um, so why I think it's mostly because they had no choice. Some of them, for whatever reason, uh, believe in science, but where they go really off track is when they say it's a consensus. That is a word that should be a red flag to a scientist, because science is not about consensus. It's science. You only need one real counterexample, and that changes the story. Okay, if it's a good scientific point and it disproves the theory, then it's I was going to say it's settled. Oh my God, it shows that that common position isn't as solid as they think. That's why we have discussion, and that's why we have debate between experts, is to get into the nitty gritty of the real details. Where one side wants to just smudge that over because we don't want to talk about those, because if that becomes common knowledge, for instance, the adverse effects, the who knows what the effects are on reproductive systems, If that stuff gets out, then there's going to be some vaccine hesitance, and then we won't have 100% compliance, and then we're doomed.
That's the cognitive dissonance right
Yeah,
there. It's like y- people will say we have a majority of experts um, agreeing, and then you might point out, some experts that aren't, and then they just have to say, well, I have a wealth of experts, like you got to go with the majority or this number, and
yeah,
then if you point out, well, what about the fact that many experts would lose their jobs if they change their mind because there's some sort of authoritarian force that's keeping them from speaking out. Things are being suppressed all around us, and it's not just this topic either. It's been going on for years. But then they'll say that suppression is necessary to prevent the spread of misinformation. So
yeah. Red flag.
it's so circular.
And the way I think of it is, okay, let's just identify the red flags. Those are the things where your antenna go, hey, something's wrong here. Okay, let's look at it some more. Okay, oh, it's circular. Oh, red flag, something's wrong here. Oh, the PCR test depend on how many cycles. Oh, red flag. You know what I mean by that? Like they can get
There's been a lot of those.
yeah,
A lot of red flags throughout this whole thing.